a sec?
No.
I'm back.
Just wanted to get in before.
You are back, and welcome back.
Yeah, no, it's good to be here in the chair looking like redneck Theo Von.
I don't even know where to start with this.
No, well, I've had a month to think about what I'm going to say when I come back.
So much to unpack with that comment, but yes, Theo Von. Well, you're looking very summery.
Yeah, well, it's getting there. I got a slight mild tan yesterday or the day before.
You tan on your driver's arm as
yeah,
well.
I really am.
Yeah,
I only noticed it today.
All the right arm in it.
I'm gonna have to start driving backwards.
Yeah,
It's gonna have to figure out a technique to
get
even
there.
out.
You'll get there.
As long as I can get like half a face. I don't know.
And this went off the rails really quickly, but
Yeah,
anyway,
good start.
it is good to have you back, man.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
It's been quite weird sort of not having you here, because I think every time I've done an intro or an outro, it's like, and that's where Andrew sits.
Empty chair.
Yeah, but then
.com.
But it was weird because we, in the middle of all of that, we had Lauren Roach, and we'd recorded that like a month in advance or 6 weeks in advance, and then it was like, Andrew's not here, Andrew's not here, Andrew's here, Andrew's not here, Andrew's not here, and now you're here.
Yeah.
So it's been very cool. Catherine.
Yeah. Nah, she was quite fascinating.
Yeah, dude. We've got a book here, and she was very gracious enough to give this to Northland Artists Conversation, which I thought was really nice, and she has graciously signed it as well.
Oh, wicked. Look at that.
So we've got a signature.
Not for sale.
No, for commemorative and decorative purposes only. You know that you guys will hear it in the podcast, but this here, actually I'll show it up to that camera. No, I need to do it on that side. This cover here is actually going to get changed. So this is essentially a first edition of her book, The Water's Dead. But she talks about it in the podcast, and she's going to be doing a new cover when she does her second book. So, jump on over to Amazon.com. .com and grab yourself a copy of it, because it is really, really good. And physical copies can actually be purchased from Paper Plus, Whitcoulls. They're also available to be read from the library as well, so it's quite cool. What did you get out of this podcast?
I liked her take on America.
It's interesting, eh?
She said that it was very barren.
Yeah,
I was like,
it was a great choice of words. She's like, I took a train from Houston, Texas to Ohio.
Yeah. Well,
and
to Chicago.
To Chicago.
Yeah.
Sorry, to Chicago first. And she said, and it's barren.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
She said it's not what you'd expect.
No.
It's actually quite barren. And it brings me back to, like, a lot of people, I tell them I haven't really left Northland that much, like, because I haven't. And they're like, oh, you're not missing much. I'm like, what do you mean? It's only the rest of the world. But when you get people that come in and say stuff like that, you kind of get a grasp of it. You still got to go see it yourself. I'm not.
You do.
But, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, she was, super cool, very giving.
Yeah.
Of her answers as well, and it was cool. You could see in the podcast a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit nervous at the start.
Yeah.
But then as we got further on, she just got a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's sort of quite common with a lot of the guests.
It's a symptom.
A symptom
of podcasting.
It is. It is really. Yeah, because people don't really know what they're in for, especially if they haven't seen or heard any of the podcasts that we do. They don't really know what they're in for. So if you're an artist who's going to, or thinking about coming on, we would highly recommend you actually find us on YouTube or any of our other platforms, and Andrew will talk about those in the outro as well. Because it is well worth checking us out. So at least that way in advance you kind of know what you're in for.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, without further ado, let's sit down and have a conversation with Catherine Lea.
Okay.
So, Catherine.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the Five Elements Media Studio. Thank you for coming in and sitting down with the Northland Artists Conversation. It's funny, you were saying before it's a privilege for us to invite you. But I think it also gets equally reciprocated. It's a privilege to have you on. So thank you very much for coming in.
Well, thank you.
I'm sure as the viewers, now this will be an interesting one because the viewers are going to see this beautiful banner.
Yes.
Here. Well, now, what is the technical term for this?
Well, it is a banner.
A freestanding banner?
It's a freestanding banner.
There we go.
And I had two made, and one of them was actually faulty because this print ended up here.
Oh.
So I still use it. Nobody notices, but they replaced it. So
that's good.
So I ended up getting two. But they've been jolly handy because I do a lot of library events.
Yeah. Now, you've got your latest book out, which is The Water's Dead.
Yes.
Set in New Zealand.
Yes.
But that's... We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there.
All
Let's go back.
Okay.
And I mean way back.
Okay.
Because you're obviously quite an accomplished writer in your own way now.
Yep.
Did you start off like that? And what was your first creative endeavour?
Okay. I used to work for Barry Coleman.
Who was Barry
he
Coleman?
owned the NBR, National
Business Review?
Yes.
Wow.
Now, he had some bandwidth he wanted selling.
Okay.
He had invested in some international bandwidth. Now, this is just as the Southern Connection was coming through, and it wasn't through yet. So there were going to be disruptions, and he really brilliantly saw that there was a market to pick up some satellite bandwidth.
Excellent.
So I had to sell that.
Right.
But
sales.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
But because I was in sales and there was only two of us in that company, sales and technical, we worked in the BNZ building with the NBR.
Now, where was that?
That was in the middle of Queen Street. Top of the BNZ building.
Oh, I know exactly where you are. Yep. Okay, right. BNZ
and
Tower.
I got to, rub shoulders with some brilliant journalists and people of words, and I thought, you know what, I'd really like to do something like this. But I do need a hobby. I knew I needed a hobby, so I went out and went to a community college and signed up for pottery.
Pottery?
But the class was full.
Okay,
so
right.
I went to a creative writing class.
Oh, wow.
And it turned out I had a bit of talent, so that's where it started from.
Now, let's go back even further.
All right.
Now, you are an artist, and obviously not pottery, was never meant to work out that way.
No, it wasn't.
What about primary school, intermediate, high school? Was there any inclination there towards the creative fields, or were you scholarly or sporty, or, talk me through sort of...
I loved art. I would have loved to have been an artist.
Right.
And I used to do all this drawing, and my parents really didn't have a lot of confidence in themselves. They had no self-confidence.
Right.
So to have a child who wanted to do things, and I can always remember my mother, I said to her, Mum, I'd love to be a vet. And she said to me, well, if you're very lucky, maybe one day you'll marry one. And so
wow.
So we weren't expected to accomplish a lot.
Okay.
Get married, have children like everybody else did.
What decade are we talking here?
Oh, we're talking when I was probably 15, 16. And
19...
I got married very early. I got married when I was 19.
What decade? 1970?
1976, I think it was.
Wow. So the 70s, that was sort of still the mindset.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, very much the mindset.
Wow.
So it was an interesting one. I didn't expect to do very much, but what I did do, I thought, I really want to do something. When I was married, I was first married, so I went back to school. I had left school at bang on 16, just done School C.
Of course, because I think my dad did the same thing as well. I think he left school at 16.
And the funny thing is, my English paper that I sat, I thought I was in the exam, right?
Yeah.
And I had the English paper and I finished it, and I looked around at the other kids and I thought, look at these people. They're still struggling with this English paper. And I packed it in and walked out, and I got out there and one of the kids went, "What did you think of this question?" And I thought, I never saw that question.
No.
I missed out the entire middle section.
No.
And I failed School C English.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Crazy.
So School C English failure to writer.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a jump.
I know. But I did want to be an artist, and I think that I've still got drawings that I did, and they're not too bad, but I also had a very disabled daughter.
Okay.
Who had an extremely rare chromosomal abnormality.
Right.
She had a number 1A chromosome.
Sorry, a number 1A?
Ring chromosome.
Ring chromosome.
And the incidence is about it. I contacted the geneticist a while ago.
Yeah.
And it's still 1 in a billion.
1 in a billion.
Yes, so there's normally about 7 in the world.
I was going to say, there's 7 at the moment? Wow.
So it was very rare, and so I had a disabled child for most of my life. I had her when I was 25.
Okay.
And so my husband and I split up, and I moved from the South Island back to the North Island.
Oh, so where did you start? Where was your schooling?
I started in Auckland.
Yep.
And when I got married, we went to... This is very back to front, isn't it? I'm sorry.
It's fine. There's no structure. We'll just talk.
I know. So I went to the South Island with him, and I spent 8 years living in Oamaru. And then...
Oamaru, wow.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. And I said to him, look, I need more support. And he said, well, I'm not going. So... I did. He didn't want to go north.
And you took your daughter?
Took my daughter, took my son, off we went.
Back to Auckland?
Back to Auckland.
Right.
And, of course, it was really difficult in those days having basically a permanent toddler and my son. And so I needed to work. I didn't want to go on welfare. I wanted to work.
Yep.
So the IHC at the time offered me an opportunity to have my daughter live with another family during the week so I could work and then have her back at the weekend.
Right, yeah, okay.
And that worked till she was 21.
Oh, wow.
But I'd already started writing by the time she came home.
Yep.
Only just started writing. Mm-hmm. Not well. I mean, I can write. My early writing was good writing. It was just rubbish. I just wrote rubbish because I couldn't. It takes a long time to learn how to put together a story. So I was writing and trying to, get published and get things, but it takes a lot of practice. And by 2000, I think I put out the Candidate's Daughter came out in 2013.
Right.
So I self-published that. Mm-hmm. And as we discussed earlier, that was quite traumatic. Just trying to get an agent when you're in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And really locked in by how much money I had. I couldn't, I couldn't do much in terms of I couldn't go overseas. I couldn't, there were no agents here that would look at my work. So I just poddled along. And when self-publishing began, I self-published that. And I began contacting when the internet started getting going.
Yeah.
Instead of looking for an agent, I thought, I'm going to keep self-publishing because I've got the control. I know I understand the business. Mm-hmm. One of the jobs I did have, one of the part-time jobs, I worked in a big publishing house.
Wow.
In the warehouse.
Where everyone gets a bargain.
No, not that warehouse. I did work in but I worked in
the book publishing warehouse.
Publishing warehouse,
right?
Where you learn a lot about the industry.
Yep.
So, in 2014, though, I lost my daughter. Not 2014. Yes, 2014.
Wow,
I lost
okay.
her. She died, and I was absolutely distraught, and I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And I just kept writing and kept putting out books. And eventually I realised 3 years ago that while I was writing and living in a house in New Zealand, in Auckland,
Yep.
I was living in my biggest asset. So I decided to sell and move north, where my sister happens to live, and have a little bit of money in the bank and not have the crushing,
I know where you're going with that,
staring poverty down the barrel for my whole life.
Yeah.
And to actually be able to have some control over my life. So it was great. I bought a little house in Kirikiri, and it's been fabulous. My daughter's ashes are sitting on my dressing table.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Whew,
I know.
It's kind of a nice snapshot, really, isn't it?
Well, there's so many aspects when you look back. I mean, I'm 66. There's a lot of life in there.
There is.
Yeah.
Let's cover some of it, shall we?
Okay.
Let's go back to... No, I'm going to say Radio New Zealand, but it's not. It's the...
NBR?
NBR, that's the one. I was thinking RNB, and I was like, no, it's not a type of music. NBR.
Yeah.
NBR.
Yeah.
You get to spend time with... How old are you at this point, just out of curiosity, when you're at NBR?
This would have been in the late 90s.
So you 20s, 30s?
No, I would have been in my 40s.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're with these... So the NBR, certainly from when I grew up, I remember Dad reading it and referencing it because it was considered the kind of the business magazine, and it was like this benchmark for everything, and
absolutely
you wanted all the latest information and business knowledge, and you read the NBR. When you're surrounding yourself with these sorts of people now, being a journalist versus being an author, it's words, but fundamentally very different.
Very different.
Because journalism relies on fact and interpretation of fact and those sorts of things, whereas being an author requires the ability to craft narrative and a story and have characters.
Yes. However,
yes,
they're not that different.
Really?
They're not that different.
How so?
With journalism, and this is what a journalist told me, a journalistic piece, you have to decide where you start the story. It has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yes.
Which every story has to come. But probably journalism, as she explained it to me, is a little more like short stories, where bring the beginning back to the end again.
Right.
And that's how she described it, as I say.
Okay.
But I used to take pieces in that I'd written, and they enthused over them. And it was so nice to have people who looked at something that I'd created and go, wow, that's great, because my parents, just bless them, they did what they knew. Yeah. But they weren't... I'll tell you a funny one.
Go on.
My mother, when she was in the rest home, and, I'd put out a few books, and she said to me, Kath, I'm not going to read your books because I'd rather go on thinking they're really good.
That's a bit dark, Mum. Wow, that's not exactly supportive.
No, not at all.
Wow,
not
okay.
at all. But I think, she had no confidence in herself, and I think she was terrified. She would read my work and just cringe.
Right.
And yet, I've told her, I used to tell her, she passed away a few years ago now, and I used to say to her, well, people like my work.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's all right, she used to say, yeah. Aren't people funny?
Wow.
And you really are so moulded by your parents and your peers.
Absolutely.
And I was so lucky that I had the people at the NBR give me so much, support. Validation.
Right,
and so it from then on, I mean, as a writer, it takes a hell of a lot just to get out of the blocks, just to finish a book. It's hard work. And all the way through, you talk about the same things other writers experience. Is the story good enough? Have I started it? Have I captured the reader? What's going to happen here? And, do I plot? Do I pants it? You've heard those terms, have you?
Yes, we have had another author on that's used those terms.
Yes. Do I pants it?
My producer, Andrew, knows exactly. Marino, we love you. But Catherine is using the same terms, so thank you.
So I'm a pantser. So I
think Marino is as well. I'm pretty sure Marino is also a pantser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like pantsing it. I pants it because I like to get the surprises myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've written that many books now, and I haven't published them all. My earlier ones were rubbish. I didn't know how to put a story together. But you can see that in the later ones, I've got a gut feeling for where it should be,
right?
Where the arc is, where I should be, how many words in I should be creating the tension and all those little pinch points that give you that. I've got to read on and find out.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a musician. Andrew, my producer, is currently a musician. I know for myself, whenever I've written songs, I can know that they're not the best, but sometimes I can shelve them and then come back to them a few years later, and suddenly they're not as shit as they were. But I can also rework them.
Yep.
Is that something that writers can do? Do they look back at their original material and go, there's probably some really interesting concepts in there and some quite characters, and then I guess retool what they've done?
I wrote the fourth Elizabeth McClaine, and I got about a third the way through, and I thought, it's a little bit different to my others. I'm just going to put it out there to a few readers and see what they think. Because I really love it. And they came back and they said, no, it's rubbish. I'd rather have
brutal.
That.
You put it out.
I would rather have that.
That's the opposite of validation.
Yeah, no. If you ask for constructive criticism, that's what they didn't just go, oh, that's rubbish. They came back and they said, it's too slow. I don't understand it.
Oh, wow.
It's not like your usual pace, because I usually write fairly pacey books. I don't understand what the characters were doing. And I thought, well, I'll just shelve that one.
Really?
But I wrote a really good prologue for it, so I'll keep that. And I'll stick that onto the beginning of another book, because I'm lazy. If I write something really good, I like to hang on to it.
Why not? I mean, Metallica have been writing the same, AC/DC have been writing the same riff for years.
Yeah.
Good for them. They're allowed to.
Yeah.
Why can't you plagiarise yourself?
That's right. And if you've got something, I mean, in this one, the prologue worked really well. And a lot of people said, the early readers said, oh, it's really drawn in by the prologue, but as soon as it started, and I thought, well, okay, that's fine. I'll just write something that's a little more in keeping with that prologue, because it was a really good one.
Okay.
So that will be one of my Elizabeth McClaines, and I'll just put that on the back burner.
Yeah.
And I write bits and pieces here and there. If I feel like I'm, for example, with The Water's Dead, I started, I'd almost written that one and I really wasn't sure. as it's turned out, I mean, people love it. My readers love it.
So, for everyone that's watching or listening at home, obviously, before we sit down and we do these conversations, we send out a pre-interview form. But also, I will try and do a little bit of research beforehand. And it's one of the things I noticed is that there is a lot of very positive press on the internet about The Water's Dead.
Yes.
So when we were talking inside before, The Candidate's Daughter, the Elizabeth McClaine series, is all based in America.
Yes. In Ohio. A place I've been twice.
Right.
Once I was unconscious.
Clearly.
Yes, I knew that it'd stop you in your tracks.
We'll get to that in just a moment. But setting it in the States, obviously, to attract a larger audience.
Yeah.
No. But with Water's Dead, I was about to say The Winter's Dead. Water's Dead, essentially it's set in New Zealand.
Yes.
Mid-north.
In the far north.
Yes. So it's a little bit more niche, a little bit more localised.
Yes.
But the comments and the feedback has been wonderful.
Yes, it has. I'm so pleased with them. And yet, you can doubt yourself and think, I don't know whether this is going to be. But the funny thing is, every author goes through it.
Yeah.
Every single author goes through the same things. And you get to the mid-slump, the mid-book slump.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to the mid-book slump where they think, I don't know. Because it's a hard road. It's 95,000 words to get down on pages. And
95,000?
Yeah. So it's a lot of work to get to, and particularly when you're pantsing a murder mystery, because you've got to keep all those facts in your head. And the strange thing is, I very rarely write notes. I have the whole book in my head, but do you think I can find my phone every day? I can't remember where it was, but I can keep the whole plot in my head.
That's a hell of a talent.
Well, I can also write different genres too. I've written some comedy, some humorous. Yes.
Published?
Yeah. I published one online, but I made the mistake. It's set in Britain, and it was set in kind of the 80s. Detective one, humorous. And I launched it on the American market, and I just don't think they understood it.
No.
So, and the funny thing is, I always thought, that I really loved that book, and I don't think it just didn't work for some reason. And my partner's just read it, and he said it was really good. It was really good.
Yeah. With that hindsight now, what would you have done differently?
Probably centred it in maybe the UK or Australia and New Zealand.
Okay.
So it based it, not the story, but the actual publication.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That book was published on Amazon?
Yes. Yeah.
Is there an amazon.co.uk?
Yes.
Would that have made a difference?
Could have made a difference, yeah. Could have made a huge difference. And Australia, although I don't think Australia was up and running when I actually wrote it.
It's only been the last few years,
yeah.
If I remember rightly. Okay. What made you decide to write comedy, just out of curiosity?
I started a murder mystery, which was going to be really thrilling, and I don't know what happened. I just ended up... it ended up a comedy. It ended up, a farcical.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, it's got things in it like the pathologist. There's a body in a tree, and the pathologist's guys are up there in the tree, and they've got the stretcher, and they're trying to ease it down, but the body comes straight out of the stretcher and bounces from one branch to the next, and ends up on the ground. And the two detectives watching on, and one says to the other, "He's bloody nimble, isn't he?"
Oh my! Really?
And just very casual and very, I don't know, maybe it's a bit silly, but my partner's English and he loved it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I haven't pushed that, but at the end of the day, you've got to understand what you're good at.
Yep.
and follow what you're good at.
So we were talking before about you in Ohio and death. Very curious to know. You've been there twice.
Yes.
Now, did you say you've died once?
No, I only said I was unconscious.
Unconscious. How does one end up unconscious in Ohio, apart from the way that some 20-somethings would do it?
Okay, I flew into Houston.
Yes.
Stayed with friends. I've got a lot of friends in the States.
Yep.
Took the train right up the middle of America to Chicago.
Oh, right. Nice.
And I thought, you would think, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It's not.
Really?
It's not. There's nothing there.
Is it just like a barren wasteland?
Yeah. And all you see is the backyards of people who can't afford to live in the nice part of town.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it was night for a lot of the time.
Okay. Is it easy to sleep on a train? I've slept on a train with a hangover, but that's...
The train was hilarious.
Okay.
We a friend of mine and I shared what they called a roomette. And which on an Amtrak train.
Is that a smaller version of a room?
Well, it's more it than room,
right?
To be honest. And
okay.
I was on the upper bunk because they turned the seats into two bunks.
Oh, okay.
So the back flips up.
Yeah.
And you've got about that much breathing room.
Between yourself and the ceiling?
Yes.
Wow.
And I said to my friend, I can almost guarantee nobody has ever had sex up here. It was just so, you could barely turn over.
Yeah.
And we had what we called the shoilet, which was the shower.
Yeah.
But it was above the toilet, and you had to dome yourself in with a shower curtain.
Oh, right.
And then the shower came down, but you had to sit on the toilet while you were showering because it was in the way. It was so tiny.
That would be, I'd imagine that would be like something they have in like motorhomes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's it called? A shoilet?
I called it a shoilet.
You call it a shoilet.
Yep, I termed it a shoilet.
Wow.
But we had lots of fun. At one point in the middle of the night, the carriages were empty, so we filmed a bit of a horror.
As you do, why not, right?
Running up and down the train, in the middle of the night. So that was quite fun. But we went from, as I said, Houston up to Chicago.
Yeah, because Houston's obviously sort of lower central, right?
Yes.
But now, I got to remember, make sure I got this right. So Houston isn't...
Texas.
That's in Texas.
Yeah.
Now, is it in the top of the state or kind of more in the middle?
I can't remember. I think it's more in the middle.
Yeah.
I think Dallas is more up...
Dallas is up the top.
Yep.
I think Houston and San Antonio are not too far from each other.
Yeah. So we went from Houston on the train up to Chicago.
Yep.
And then swapped trains to go to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
But... on the way to Pittsburgh, we went through Ohio at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And I was asleep.
Okay. Did you have a bad dream, wake up and knock yourself unconscious?
No.
Okay. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I know.
If there's that much room, you might have a bad dream like,
I know. It should have happened.
Yeah.
But no, it didn't.
Okay.
So we got to Pittsburgh and I stayed with a friend there. And then I caught a train back out to... while I was staying in Pittsburgh, my friend said, do you want to go to Ohio?
Okay.
And I said, yes, I want to be awake this time. So we got in her car and we drove up to the state line and I stepped over the state line.
Nice.
And I got my photo taken. Ohio, welcome to Ohio.
Yep.
And that's the weird thing is that I got reviews saying, isn't it wonderful to find a writer from Cleveland, Ohio, writing about our hometown. And I was like,
wow.
Google search, you are my dream.
Wow.
Yeah. Google street maps.
I tell you what, that's a hell of a compliment.
It is. It really is. So that was fabulous. But I mean, I spent an awful long time on Google Streets, just going along streets and working out how long it takes to drive from one place to the other. And yeah.
Google Maps is pretty amazing like that.
just takes you other places where, I mean, I've never been there, but it's those books still sell well.
How was the unconscious part in Ohio, though?
I don't know. I was asleep.
Oh, you were asleep?
Yes. I know. I know that was a bit mean, wasn't it?
Oh.
I
was expecting some grand story.
I know you were
okay.
expecting a bar fight over the.
It's legendary.
Yeah, over the dreadful burritos they served for dinner and things like that. But
well, yeah. If anything, that'd be a toilet stop in Ohio.
But I tell you what, you get to Chicago and I don't know whether many people know, but you go into the train station and there's another lobby around the back, and you go around there, and as a being on the trains, you leave your passport there, and they'll give you towels and flannels, and they've got hotel-like facilities for you to go and shower and clean up, and it's beautiful. And then there's a bar you can sit in, and
that would have been
gorgeous.
And I imagine how long were you on the train going from Houston to
it's a long way. I can't
Chicago.
remember.
Is it, we're talking days or?
I think it was 2 days.
Okay.
I think it was 2 days.
So I imagine getting off, any type of shower is going to seem amazing at that point.
Yeah, that was up to Chicago. But honestly, the middle of America was, what I saw of it was pretty ho-hum.
Wow.
I know, that's disappointing, isn't it?
My sister lives in Texas, so...
Does she?
She does.
Yeah.
She lives in...
Everything there is enormous. Absolutely enormous.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I've been a lot of places in the States because I usually go to the BoucherCon reader-writer festivals.
Right, okay.
And I've been to several of those. So that means I've been to the one in LA.
Yep.
Next year I'm going to the one in San Diego.
Oh, right, nice.
I've been to the one in New Orleans.
Okay.
And Florida.
Wow.
And I've been... Oh no, that was just the trip. I've been to a lot of places in the States.
Are these on the back of Elizabeth?
Yes. It's always research.
Yep.
It's always research. So
why? Research?
It's research, and of course I have to travel around all sorts of places just in case Elizabeth goes there.
That's it. I mean, Elizabeth may get beignets while she's in New Orleans.
Well, exactly.
You don't know because it is all a business expense.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I had to taste them just to make sure.
I know. But you hear they're authentic, but you don't know until you've actually had one.
I mean, having to do these things is hell.
I know.
You know, you've got to understand that I didn't do it willingly.
Yep.
It's for my art.
It is. And it's great to see that you suffer like a lot of artists do.
Yeah.
I mean, 40 hours a week in a regular grind would be easy compared to the affliction that you've had to have on travel in the States.
I know.
And good quality food.
But I mean, to have suffering on the back of a Harley Davidson to go to the Finger Lakes.
I know.
In upstate New York.
It's was tough.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, this is sarcasm. I can't have people taking us seriously. Some of the comments will be like, working 40 hours is a lot harder than travelling around. It's like, yes, I know. I work 40 hours. I know how hard it is. I do 40 hours and the podcasters do a lot of the team in the Northland Artists Conversation. So, honestly, it does sound like that you have been quite blessed as an author.
I really have. But... if you want to be blessed, you've got to work hard at it. I've learnt a lot.
Yep.
I've been prepared to take criticism, understand my genre, read my genre, listen to people, understand how to publish on Amazon.
Yep.
And I've often had people come to me and say, look, could you help me publish my book on Amazon? And I say to them, well, why do you want to do that? And they say, I just want it there. And I say, well, do you want to make money out of it? And they say, no, I don't even care if nobody reads it. And I say, well,
what's the point?
What's the point?
I mean,
I know it's this
It seems like an odd strategy.
No, I think people want to write.
Yeah.
And they want to see it in living technicolor.
Right.
But they're terrified.
Okay.
And I really do think that a lot more New Zealanders should step up and give it a go. It's hard work. It's hard work writing a full novel.
Yeah.
But I think I read one author say the best part of writing is having written.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you self-publish, you are a business.
Yes.
You've got to act as a business. You've got to know where your money is coming from, how to make it, how to stay ahead of the game, because believe me, there are people out there ready to game everything because there is big money in it.
Yeah.
Really big money.
Yeah.
Somebody told me the other day that they didn't believe that people read digital books anymore. And I've just had a look up, and to be number one on Amazon, you have to sell between 3,500 and 5,000 books in a 24-hour period.
Wow!
Yeah.
I was expecting to say like in a month.
No.
In a 24-hour
In one 24-hour period.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
so
unbelievable.
To say nobody reads them, I mean, that's ridiculous.
It's interesting with so I have a question as someone who's done music, and when I was in the band, we recorded, we produced, we mixed, we didn't master, but then we got all the artwork done and we released our album ourselves.
Yep.
And then now you have the advent of Spotify, for example, to be able to consume music. How different is it for writers between having a physical printed, I can touch it copy versus a digital copy?
Okay, it depends on... Are you talking independent publishing or traditional publishing?
Let's talk you.
All right.
We're
for
here to
me,
talk you. Yeah.
Okay. The publishing on Amazon is free.
Okay. Digital.
Digital.
Is it Kindle?
Kindle and print.
Right. Okay.
But it's POD. It's print on demand.
Right. Okay. Yep.
So then the costs start, because you've got to have I get editors. Now, an editor can cost $3,000 for a good editor, just to make sure your book is structured properly, that, it's going to be the best read it can be.
Yep.
Then it has to be proofread. I read this the other day and I found I had one error in it, and I've got to fix that. And
now there's the new one that's just come out that we were talking about before. What's that title again?
That's called Better Left Dead.
No. The new job title. Someone Water's Dead. Sensitivity reader.
Oh yes.
Do you have to pay for a sensitivity reader?
A lot of people do.
Wow. So that's if
we could back up a little bit.
Let's go back. Yeah.
All my other books, my Elizabeth McClaine's, are really, they're partly political. They're American.
Yeah.
They're very white bread. This book is in the far north of New Zealand.
Yes.
An agent came to me and said, "Look, I'd really like to pitch this overseas."
Yep.
And I said, "That'd be great." And so I sent it to her, and she came back aghast because I had Māori characters in it, and I had te reo in there. And she said, "Look, are you Māori, or have you had, Māori living experience?"
Yeah.
And I said, "No, but neither is my main character." And she said, "Oh, that's a bit of a worry, because, they're nervous about it."
Yep.
And I said, "Well, if I wrote a book about the far north and left Māori out of it, I think that would be pretty much racism by omission."
Absolutely.
And she said, "Well, you need to get a sensitivity reader to read this."
I'd never heard.
Yeah.
What? Okay, so an editor, I understand.
Yep.
All right. Proofreader, I understand.
Yep.
Because not everyone knows how to hit F7
Yep.
on a computer and proofread. But a sensitivity.
Yep.
reader. Now, can you please explain to not only me but also to the viewers and listeners what a sensitivity is? A sensitivity reader? Is that
a sensitivity reader goes through and ensures that the novel isn't going to be offensive to cultural groups or to certain ethnicities that are presented in the book.
Because this obviously doesn't relate to just Māori, right? This could be Aboriginal or...
Apparently not Chinese or Jewish or... I know.
Okay.
However, you know, with a lot of the publications that have come out that have represented, and I mean, I'm talking, some people have written in a particular culture from a first person, having not lived that.
Yeah, sure.
And then the edges between fiction and non-fiction are blurred.
Yep.
And how much freedom of speech do you have as an author if you are controlled by a sensitivity reader? Because a sensitivity reader might read something and say, well, you know, I don't like that. I don't think you should have it in the book. And it might be a key to your whole story. It might be, for example, a person of colour who has a drink problem.
Right.
And they'll say, we think that's offensive.
Yeah, it's like it could be a critical plot point, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or a twist.
Yeah. So it is, and I understand the publishers, they will get huge, you know...
lawsuits, because we've become a litigious society, right?
I know.
Yep.
So fiction it's a bit of a sticky one at times,
right? And
particularly when I'm writing in them at Far North. So I read the quote on the back of
now. I'm going to read that out if that's okay, because I thought this was absolutely awesome. Now, your ethnicity is...
I'm European.
European.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is The Water's Dead, set in the Far North.
Far North.
With Māori characters and te reo.
Yeah.
And this is... You reached out to this person and asked them to read the book. Now, I thought this was amazing. Catherine has sensitively interwoven a moving homicide story around a traditional Māori cultural landscape of sacred land and ancient kawa protocols. As an elder or kaumātua of the Ngāpuhi tribe of the Far North, the story unfolds and brings back personal, profound memories for me. Now this was a quote by the Honourable Dover Samuels, QCM, former MP of Te Tai Tokerau, Minister of Māori Affairs. How amazing.
I was very lucky.
If that's not a validation, I don't know what is. Did the sensitivity reader get a copy of that comment?
I didn't get a sensitivity reader.
Oh, God.
As far as I'm concerned, he was a sensitivity reader enough.
That's amazing, and cost you a lot less.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So with the books that you have, we'll go back with the books that you have that sort of you have online. And you have your costs that you incur. So you have your editor, you have your proofreader. What are the other sort of costs that kind of come up with I think with a digital space? So you've got artist.
Yes.
So that's front and back cover.
I'm going to get a new book cover for this. I feel like this one isn't good enough. It doesn't represent the story well enough.
Okay.
So I may end up getting another book cover for this and have it marry in with the second in the series.
Yeah.
Now, the second in the series is going to be called Better Left Dead.
Right.
And I want to continue with the dead theme in it.
Well, are you planning a trilogy?
This is a series.
It's a series, okay.
It's a series.
Right.
So the way I've written these books, or the first one, and I want to continue... one of my favourite authors was Ed McBain.
Okay.
Do you know him?
Never heard of them.
Did you ever remember Hill Street Blues?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That was based on Ed McBain's books.
Really?
Yes. Now, his books were the 87th Precinct.
Yep.
And you followed, and it was basically, it wasn't one main character. There was a main character, but the main character was the precinct and all the cops in it.
It was very much an ensemble piece.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember. Mum and Dad didn't watch it too much, but that was sort of when I think it was on like 8:30 at night on like a Monday or a Tuesday on TV2. Very, very much an ensemble cast from what I remember, where it was more about the events and the surroundings, all centred on the hub, which was the police station.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So in this one, Nairi Bradshaw.
Yes.
And I have spelt her name Nyree.
Yes.
That's because I've released this in the States, and I rang one of my friends and I said, I had it originally spelt the Māori way.
Yeah.
And I said to her, how would you pronounce that? And she said, well, it's Nagia.
Oh, right.
Now,
okay.
Interestingly enough, Nairi Dawn Porter, who was an actress, changed her name from Nairi to the spelling.
Oh, really?
Yes.
For the similar
nobody
reasons,
knew it. Nobody knew how to say it.
Wow, okay.
So Nairi is the main character.
Yes.
But she's got the detective. She's got Bowman, who's a young detective, Hicks, Willis, Hinare, and in the second book she's got Parihuia.
Okay.
So she's got a range of detectives and she has constables,
right?
Who also work the scene and work everything.
Yeah.
And you can be off with Hicks following a lead that Nairi sent him on. You can be following, Willis on another lead. And all of these leads will come back together because in real life, in New Zealand, detective inspectors don't really go running around the scene and interviewing people. They are like a ringmaster.
Yep.
So it's I've got this, and so you'll find out about each of the characters. Each of them will have their own lives, so you'll discover their backgrounds while they're also working this case. And I love twists. I love putting twists in. So, you get twisted one way and then the other, wondering who did it and why. And it makes it interesting for the reader, and it makes it interesting for me.
One of the organisations that proudly supports the Northland Artists Conversation is Creative Northland. I'm going to take just a moment to talk to you guys about it. Creative Northland have been absolutely vital in helping this project get off the ground through its infancy and all the way through to where we are now. We couldn't have done what we've done without their assistance. What we suggest is that if you're a creative person and you haven't heard of Creative Northland, we highly recommend that you reach out to them. Creative Northland, simply do a Google search. They're the top result. These guys are wonderful. They're all creatives in their own way, and they're all very, very well respected throughout the industry that they work in. They're very hardworking, absolutely committed and dedicated to helping the creative people throughout Northland, whether it be through simple things like starting up a project, all the way through to putting on like an exhibition, for example, all the way through to working out how they can start turning what they do into a business. It's all free advice. They give really, really good guidelines and helpful assistance to make sure that you, as a creative, are able to get the most out of what you do. Creative Northland, highly recommend them. Check them out. So obviously, with having had that wonderful, beautiful review from the Honourable Dover Samuels, and you didn't need a sensitivity reader, did you? Now, why is that?
I do a lot of research. I worked with Māori. I asked them questions.
Yep.
I've talked to them about, their traditions, their beliefs. There's a lot of different information depending on who you talk to.
Yeah. But
the people I've spoken to really are the real deal, and they know what they're talking about. I talk to people who are fluent in te reo. I know that when I put te reo in my books, that it means what I say it means.
Yeah. So there's obviously not only just the words, there's also the context of the words as well, right?
Exactly. There's the context, there's the... and it's the way that Māori almost behave. There is a certain behaviour. For example, in The Water's Dead, the father, he's really staunch.
Yep.
The father of the dead girl, he's really staunch and he's out to get whoever killed her.
Yep.
But when they start talking to him, tears run down his face.
Yep.
So there's that very deep, and it's not just about, it's about losing his daughter.
Yep.
And she was pregnant, so it's his granddaughter, and it's all his whānau, it's his whakapapa, it's everything to him.
Because essentially you could look at it from a surface level
Yeah.
and go, Māori, dad staunch.
Yeah.
But there's the underlying depth
Exactly.
of the character as well, which is like he may present to the public a very staunch, stoic face, but underneath can be hurt.
Absolutely.
And pain.
Yes.
You know.
And in this particular character, he's not afraid to show that.
Right, yeah.
In that instance.
And you wouldn't get that if you hadn't done that research prior. Okay. And I think that's a very important distinction to make as well, because, you know, you could jump on Google.
Yep.
And, you know, I know there's the Māori to English translator. You could, or English to Māori, you could type up a sentence and it pops up something. You'd be like, that's good enough.
Yeah.
But it's not, is it?
That's right.
It's not. You've actually got to go and sit down and talk with the people.
That's right.
And I'm guessing as the writer, you need to sit down and paint the picture for them so they understand the context.
Yep.
So they go, well, you would say this way because of this, and it relates to this and that. So, you know, I guess if you don't do your due diligence, oh, God, I hate saying this combination of words, due diligence. Yes. You're going to get called out for it.
Absolutely. And I think that's why they really would like to have the sensitivity readers. It's just to make sure that those aspects are in their right places.
Yeah, sure.
So in that way, I do understand.
Yep.
And I understand publishers, being weary of getting cultural facts wrong.
Yep.
And one that stuck out to me was I had a very dear friend in America who wrote a review for me, and she talked about, this young Maori Indian who was in the pool. And I contacted her and I said, we don't have Maori Indians.
Oh.
I said, they're Maori, not Indians.
No.
So she was kind of putting it in the way that they're indigenous people are Indians, and assumed that ours would be too.
Yeah.
So, that's...
What's looking... I mean, I guess she looks through her life with a certain lens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so when you're writing to another... I mean, Americans are quite a different culture.
I think that's putting it politely.
I thought that was polite.
Very, very diplomatic of you.
Yes, quite a different culture.
Yeah.
And she was so embarrassed when I told her. She was so embarrassed, and she took it out and corrected it all.
Yeah.
I've had reviews saying, "Oh, it's so wonderful to read such an exotic place as New Zealand," and we don't see it as
we don't
exotic.
We take it for granted.
We take it for granted.
We do.
Absolutely, and this is what I mean when I told you about going right up through the middle of the states. And it's almost barren in a lot of places, and we take it for granted that we've got these most beautiful beaches, and we've got, you look at the far north, and you go up to Cape Reinga, and it's such a spiritual place. It is
absolutely
beautiful.
Absolutely.
And yet you go down to the South Island, and you could be in Canada, only better.
A better Canada.
A better Canada.
That's awesome.
A better Canada without moose.
Yeah. Or without people wandering around going, that's a boot, right? Eh?
That's right.
Sorry, that's racist to Canadians. I apologise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I think from that aspect, you can kind of see both sides of the coin, right?
Absolutely.
You can see it from your side of the equation, who does the research,
yeah,
right? And isn't afraid to get stuck in and do the arts, versus the publisher that's like, well, we want to do this, but we don't want to get sued. So
that's right.
You know, very much I guess it kind of falls on a trust sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
So, Order's Dead. Working on the second book at the moment?
Yes.
Excellent. And the second book is called?
Better Left Dead.
Better Left Dead. Now, are you able to share a little bit about what the Better Left Dead's going to be about? Are we allowed to get a few spoilers in here?
All right, I think so. As I said, with my main character, Nairi Bradshaw, she's the DI.
Yep.
She's had a very difficult relationship with her son.
Yes. I liked this.
Yes. He's in prison for murder.
Yep.
And every reader, not one reader likes him. He's basically a psychopath.
Okay.
He's gone right off the rails.
Okay.
He's difficult. He tortures Nairi with her heart.
Right, yeah.
And he's already told her he never wants to see her again and things like this. And so she still loves him. And she is always through the series going to be trying to win him back again, to make him the son, the little boy that he blames her for abandoning him for her career.
Right. Interesting.
Yes. So in the second book, spoiler alert.
Okay.
She is going to find out she's got a granddaughter.
Yes.
And he wants her to take guardianship of her.
Ah.
And it's either she takes her or she can cut ties with her son altogether.
Wow.
So it's a real
emotional manipulation.
Yeah. Mm.
Wow.
So, for a start, Nairi doesn't even know whether the child is her granddaughter, so she's got to go through all this. Now, at the same time, because her son says, if you don't take her, she goes into the system, she goes into care.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. Now, at the same time, Nairi happens to be working on a case of a young woman who's been found garroted in her filthy house. And this young woman was a hoarder.
Yeah.
And there's rubbish everywhere. And when they find her, they start looking into her background and discover she was in care.
She was in care herself?
Yes.
Wow.
This young woman was in care, and she's got a list of other people she was in care with as children. And some of them have been crossed off the list, who are now dead.
No more. That sounds amazing.
So we've got to figure out who killed her.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Nairi's juggling this situation where she has to become a mother all over again.
Yeah.
And it's a situation so many grandparents find themselves in these days.
Absolutely.
They might already be working. They might have jobs. They've got lives, and all of a sudden, they've got children
to
raise.
Here's a grandchild.
Yeah.
Off you go.
And not through anyone's fault. Circumstances change, and you just never know when that's going to happen.
Wow.
So I like to pick out bits of society that I think are maybe broken or unfair or, people who are in difficult situations.
Yeah.
And I like to pick that apart and find out, for example, you look at the lives of these young people who are in care, and you get a little bit of a hint of what they went through.
Yeah.
And they all grew up, and some kept in touch.
Yeah.
So the dead woman had kept in touch with the others.
What stage is that book in? Is it in? Are we like 2/3? Is it written? Is it?
It's 2/3 written.
Right.
I know where I'm going.
Okay, you've got the ending all mapped out.
I've got the ending pretty much mapped out.
Nice.
I like where it's gone. Some of it's gone in directions I didn't think it would go in.
Ooh.
But it's drawn in other aspects of the far north, and you know, you get a feeling for, boy, there are people who could have done this who are unlikely to have done it. People, there's one bloke, an old bloke, who comes in and confesses to it.
Okay, red herring.
But he didn't do it.
Interesting.
And they know he didn't do it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but then you've got to figure out, why did he confess? Who is he protecting? So, you know.
Is he the local crackpot? Does it give him, does that confession give him a bed and 3 squares?
Not in this case.
Oh,
However,
yeah,
there are reasons.
Okay.
And that all goes back to the original murder.
That sounds like it's going to be amazing. How long will it take you to sort of finish that? And then what's the length of process to sort of get it into what we've got in front of us today?
I've given myself a timeline I want to put the next one out in January.
Next year?
Yep.
So
I can write 1,000 words a day. Some people can write far more. And it's a matter of working the muscle, the writing muscle.
Yeah.
But I can comfortably do 1,000 words a day. So I'm up to about 67,000 words. They usually end up about 95,000 words. So
wow.
I do nice short chapters. So I don't pad things. I don't pad the chapters out with, lots of flowery language. And I think I've read some mysteries and I've really enjoyed them, but they have a lot of description, and mine tend to be more thriller.
Right, yeah.
Rather than murder mystery.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that it's not the style, but I remember attempting many, many years ago to read The Fellowship of the Ring.
Right.
And the first 150 pages is talking about the guy that knows the fella that knows the other guy who's the other fella who's the best friend of Bilbo.
Yep.
The birthday party scene is like 100 pages long, and I'm just like... I understand it sets up a universe, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But not all of us are into the world building.
It's not that we're not into the world building. Writing has changed.
Absolutely.
It's changed immensely. We're competing with such instant gratification. We're Netflix, television, the movies, music,
TikTok.
Facebook, all of them, Instagram. We're competing with all of that, and if you don't grab the reader pretty quickly, or at least have a compelling story to tell, they're just going to put it down and walk away.
Yeah.
Or not buy it in the first place.
Yeah.
And the way Amazon runs now, they've had their moments. They have a thing called Kindle Unlimited.
Okay, yeah.
It's a bit like Spotify.
Right, okay. I was wondering if you were going to say that, yeah.
It's a...
Pay a monthly subscription, consume as many books as you can.
Yes.
Right.
It used to be you only got 5.
Really?
Yes, but then they changed it.
Yeah.
And what would happen is, when I talked to you a while back about people gaming the system.
Yes. Yep.
What happened in the beginning was people would think, if I put my book in Kindle Unlimited, it was Kindle something else before that, and I only wrote a book, if I get paid $2.95 for a book, but if I only wrote a book with 10 pages and still get paid $2.95, why would I write more? So they loaded...
Wow. You could literally just drop a chapter.
Yeah.
And that would be it.
Yeah. So
there's short stories, though. Okay, right.
Yeah, but, you get some fantasy writers who write 120, 140,000 words.
Yep, yeah.
And their books don't get read.
Yep.
Or they do get read, but it takes a lot longer. It's a hell of a lot more work.
Yeah.
And they still only got $2.95. So Amazon, in their infinite wisdom, decided that they would do it another way.
Okay.
And they decided to... What did they do in the interim? They decided not to pay... I can't remember what they did, but in the end, they have decided... That's right. They decided to pay for page reads.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense, right?
Well, they said they had the technology, so people would then say they've got a book of 300 pages.
Yes.
They get about half a cent. It depends on how much is in the fund.
Okay.
Half a cent a page, which, depending on the words, whether you're being robbed or not, you might not have very many words on the page. So some people put double paragraphs in.
Yeah.
And what other people did was just packed out their books, so it was a longer read.
Yeah.
And Amazon didn't like that either, so they decided that they would stop that. Then they discovered that other people had discovered that Amazon can't actually tell how many pages that you have really read. And so they would put a little link in the front of the book saying, here's a big surprise for you at the back of the book. So they would click that and go straight to the back of the book. And Amazon thought they'd read the whole book.
Wow.
So now Amazon...
Gaming the system.
Well, we've had click farms where when you could just download a book.
Yeah.
India was alight with click farms. There is big money to be made.
I mean,
some of those books get millions of page reads. At half a cent, it doesn't sound much, but then Amazon put up a prize called the All Stars, and the first prize you get $25,000 extra just for getting the most page reads, and that'll be an equivalent to the 3,500 to 5,000 books in a day.
Yeah.
An equivalent to that.
Wow.
There's big money.
That's bonkers. But isn't it interesting that no matter what, someone somewhere is going to try and fleece the system wherever possible. And it doesn't matter what it is.
That's exactly right.
Far out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
know.
So what have we got coming up? Because we've got for those of you that are watching, we've got two books here. We've got The Candidate's Daughter, which was the first. Elizabeth McClaine. And then we've got Stolen Woman. Is that the second?
That is the third. I didn't have
a copy of the second.
Child of the State, which is the second one.
Now we've got The Water's Dead, which how long has this been out for?
It originally came out on Amazon in February.
Yeah.
And then I took it off the market for a long time.
That's right.
That's what killed it on Amazon.
Wow. Okay.
It really didn't do it very much. Because with Amazon, the more you publish and the quicker you publish and the more reviews you get, Amazon wants customers to buy the books.
Yeah. And
they absolutely want them to.
Pushes the algorithm so you get further on towards the front page, right?
Yep.
Like the landing page.
Yep.
Okay.
So that makes a huge difference. And because it seemed to have sat stale for such a long time, Amazon figures that nobody wants to read it, so it flutters.
Falls down, right? Yep.
Yeah. So it's had a little bit of a hard start.
Where can people get this from? Because obviously I'm holding a physical copy. I'm not holding a digital copy. I do prefer physical, by the way.
Yep.
Where can I get both?
That is in all the Paper Pluses.
Yes.
All the Whitcalls, or not all the Whitcalls, most of the Whitcalls. I think some of them are sold out.
Congratulations. That's a terrible problem to have.
I know. It's in most of the libraries.
Excellent.
I think Southland decided not to have it. I don't know why.
Well, it's probably because we just insulted them and called them a better Canada.
I know.
And how much? And this is also going to be found on Amazon to purchase as well, right?
Yes.
Can people purchase this from your website, or is there a link that takes people to Amazon?
I haven't got a link on my website at the moment to purchase. It would simply take you to Amazon.
Right.
I have got links on the website, but my website, for anybody who rushes along to look at it, It is just about to have a revamp.
Of course.
When I first started out, I designed the website. I know for a fact that there's a button on there that doesn't work at the moment, which is really poor. So I've reached out to a web designer and said, look, I think it's time I got a website up and running, especially now that The Water's Dead's out and I'm publishing in New Zealand. Makes a huge difference.
How much does one of these go for?
$34.95.
In
New Zealand.
In paperback?
In paperback in New Zealand.
Yep. What about digital?
Digital in the States, I think it's $3.99. Here, it's because everything is priced in. I think it's $3.99 here as well. I've tried to keep the New Zealand Australia price down, but it's only in Australia.
Yeah.
But you can still download it from, and it should be basically the same price. But I've tried to keep it down in New Zealand and Australia.
I think books are amazing. I used to be a voracious reader. I had my favourite authors. It's just really interesting. Just quickly touching on that, Stephen King, legendary author, once said that he will go into his writing studio each day and sit down and write, I don't know, it's like 3 pages each day. Is that the discipline that's required?
Yes.
Okay.
It really is. It's all about bum on seat.
Yep.
That's what it is. You get a slump. And really, I've just been through a bit of a slump, excuse me, and you have to write through it. You can't see the characters, you feel like you're failing, you feel like the story isn't interesting enough. But if you keep going, it picks back up again. And when you look back, you realise the story wasn't failing. It was going exactly the way it was supposed to be going. It's just that your confidence level dropped.
Right. Okay.
And when you're writing a first draft, you've got to bear in mind it's going to be good, because I might be writing rubbish at the moment, but you can't edit a blank page.
No.
You can only edit a page with writing on it. So
that's very true.
It makes a huge difference if you can push through.
Yeah. Catherine, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
What is the website? Even though it's going through a refresh?
Yes.
What's the website?
authorcatherinelee.com.
Outstanding. And I'm guessing, people can check out not only The Water's Dead, but also the complete Elizabeth McClaine series.
Absolutely. They're on Amazon. You can find them on Amazon. I'm about to do a special, but I think we might just miss it. I'll check out when the podcast goes out.
Yep.
And I will do the digital books at a special price.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, viewers and listeners, I hope you've heard that. A special price. We'll try and tie it in for when the podcast release. Wow, that's amazing. Yep. So, Amazon, check it out. Catherine Lea, surname spelled Lea.
That's right.
There we go, not L-E-E. Again, thank you so much for coming in and sitting down. This for me has been really interesting.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's so cool to always to talk with people, and I think we've had a couple of international artists on here, and it's nice to talk with people that are having international success, because we deserve it.
We do. We're actually, we've got some damn good writers here.
We do.
Really good writers.
And we should celebrate
and
it.
And you can keep that one.
Well, thank you. That is so cool. I might get a Sharpie and get you to autograph it. Now, I do want to say something really quickly, and I know we're about to run out of time.
Yep.
if people grab this one, this will be the original cover. Because the new cover will be revised, right?
It will be revised.
Special edition. So
First edition,
make sure you grab it, people. Thank you again so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I can't thank you enough for coming in.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
So works. Wow. Catherine Lea.
No, it was wicked.
Man, she was like super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. And, you know, once we'd finished and we were sort of taking photos, we were just having a good old laugh at the end of it as well. She was like super relaxed.
Yeah.
By the end of it. And I'm just so genuinely stoked. She's and amazing. Another international artist for us.
Yeah, wicked. I had no idea.
I know.
come into it completely naive and into...
Yeah. It was... you know, I mean, I read the sort of the pre-interview notes beforehand, so at least that way everything's like quite fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realise sort of the extent of her, you know, like her first series of books is written from Ohio's perspective.
Yeah.
And she's only been there twice. Or, you know, the fact that with Water's Dead, it's kind of more far north because she lives in the mid-north. But, you know, she must be doing okay.
Yeah.
Because she's turned her first lot into a series, and this one here, The Water's Dead, is the start of another series.
That's pretty wicked, eh?
And I think that's insanely cool.
Yeah.
Insanely cool.
And disciplined.
Great word.
I'm like sitting here and going, oh yeah, I could write a book of my life, and then just watch these people talk about having to write 1,000 words a day. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck, I don't have much time.
So what did she say?
Working 40 hours, like you guys were saying, like
she does. What did she say? An average book is 95,000 words. Yeah. And if you do 1,000 words a day, 95 days, so it should just take just over 3 months.
I mean, I've written 10,000 words in 6 hours.
What?
That was full. I had to write a full scientific report while I was studying.
Right.
And I really bad at leaving things to the last minute, and I wrote
you're that guy.
10,000 words.
Yeah, nice.
A lot of it was
pressure performer.
No one picks up on this, but you can copy, paste, and rejig shit so that it won't get picked up by plagiarism checkers that well.
We're not condoning that.
You know.
Do what you got to do.
They tell us to read it.
Yep.
That's not plagiarism.
Yep. Respect the hustle.
But no, one of the two things that I liked from her podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, what were your things?
Her talk about how she used Google Maps to figure out the logistics inside her story without actually being there. I was like, that's fascinating. I would have never thought of that myself.
No, neither.
Like, if I had to write about somewhere else, it'd be 100% like cheesing it up to
and you'd be writing bollocks, right?
Yeah.
But I have to agree it's an absolutely ingenious move to sit down and go, I'm going to write about somewhere I've never been, and then I'm going to develop everything around that, and I'm going to use Google Maps,
Street View.
I
was
know.
Like, wow, that's so cool.
Like, I know, and you could just imagine it's like the green letterbox next to the local blah 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 cafe.
Like hear her talk about how people like say, oh yeah, it's so great to have someone from Cleveland, Ohio write about our city, and she's just like, wow. I was like, that is amazing.
What was the second thing?
The second thing was her talking about like how much they pay per like kind of page read and stuff, and not only that, but she mentioned click farms. Yes. And so I've worked with people and worked around people that have used click farms to fudge their stuff.
Really?
Yeah, not nefariously, just to boost their numbers a bit. They weren't the platforms they use them on, they don't get paid per se, but it's like really frowned upon. So to hear that people are actually doing that with writing too, I was like, of course they would.
Of course.
But like, I thought that was like a unique thing, like to music and visual media, you know, would be doing that. Not. Yeah, really weird.
I know, and it was interesting as she's talking about, you know, that sort of stuff. For me, I guess it was the comparison between CDs and Spotify versus books and Kindle or Amazon, you know, those sorts of things. Because I watched a short documentary this morning, funnily enough, on Spotify, and some of the practices that they have, and really, really interesting. So when she's talking about Amazon and how they're doing, is it page reads or whole books and that sort of stuff, I was like, man, this has got a really familiar feel to it.
Because for Spotify, I think 30 seconds is classed as a full play.
Yeah, it is.
I'm pretty sure.
Is it 30 seconds or a minute?
No, I'm pretty sure it's only 30 seconds.
Okay.
So for most songs, that's the intro. Like all our songs, we've always been big on like string out shit. So
the
really
wicked long intro.
Yeah. Wow, it's nothing to do with getting paid. It's just how we've done it.
Yeah. So for me, sort of learning that, but I guess that business side of things was really interesting, and then obviously leading into the farming that she was talking about as well. Just really fascinating stuff. Yeah. And because obviously we aren't in that industry. Yeah. We don't know much about it, and she talks about it openly. Yeah, and it works great. It works very similar. They go hand in hand with distribution. I thought there would be a different, but it's the internet nowadays. Yeah. So that's the power of it. It's technically the distribution tool. Well, so it doesn't matter who you go through, it's all the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And actually, hang on a second. Uh-oh. Nah. No, there was something I did want to cover off. She actually has some events coming up, and I completely forgot to touch on them. So she's got an event at the Albany Library, and she is also doing some book club events as well. And she's been asked to speak at a book club in Kirikiri too. So she's, and when we have that lovely stand, what the hell did we the banner, the self-standing banner, which was just super cool, and it was such nice. We've had artists bring in art and all of that sort of stuff, but to have a banner was like really, really different. Yeah, it wasn't straight promo material. It was actually quite good looking. Yeah. So it was quite good. So if anyone's watching or listening, please, if you do see an event pop up on Facebook for Catherine Lea and The Water's Dead, I highly recommend going and checking it out, because the book itself, not only with it being local, actually does seem like a really cool read, and I'm going to sit down and blast through it as quick as I can. Now, Andrew, you can do this, because Lord knows I was doing it enough. Where can people find us? So, for visuals, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Northland Artists Conversation. For audio, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. It's Northland Artists Conversation as well. And then if you want to reach out, if you're an artist in the area, because Mark forgot to do this in the podcast I'm editing. Stop it. If you're an artist in the region and you want to come and sit down and kind of speak on what you do, or you just want to, reach out and see if it's for you, our email is hello@northlandartistsconversation.co.nz. So absolutely, and it's great to have you do that, because obviously I have hashed it up a couple of times. Nah, you're all good, Mark. You did well. But I also want to say we do have Patreon as well, and what Patreon is it's a way for you, the listener or viewer, to just give back a little bit more to the podcast. We appreciate everyone that on Facebook or Instagram gives us a thumbs up or a heart or leaves a comment. Those sorts of things are really appreciated. But with Patreon, you can actually support us and help the podcast continue to grow. We have two tiers. First tier is what I've called Cup of Coffee. And that's just that's $5 a month, and that's just a way of saying, hey, look, we like what you're doing, thank you very much, we continue to support it. Second tier we have is Coffee Addict. That's $20 a month, and what that does is it gives you a couple of extra perks, and yes, hand on heart, I am going to get better at doing that one, but one of the things it does allow you to do is I will post in there the artists that we will be filming coming up. So if you have a question for those artists that you would like me to ask, I will gladly do that for you. How do you find us? You can find us on www.patreon.com/Northland Artists Conversation, or simply go to Google, type in Patreon, that's Patreon, and then search Northland Artists Conversation. We do have two official Patreon sponsors. I'd like to thank them both. They are Lauren Roach, who has been a former guest, and Michael Boter, who has also been a former guest. So thank you very much, guys. Really do appreciate the support. It certainly does not go unnoticed, and it's actually really welcome. So please, $20 a month.
It's so cool to see people coming on board for this.
It is, and it's cool because this will be, I think we're probably near episode 20, if not have passed episode 20. And that means we've been doing it for over 4 months.
Yeah. It's gone by so quick too.
It has.
Because obviously I've been absent, and what I've been doing in behind the scenes for the past month has been just editing.
Yeah.
And so to hear you say, this is episode 17, this is episode so-and-so, I'm like, whoa, where's all that gone? It's amazing.
And we're at a place now where we're actually ahead too, which is also really cool. So, by the time this podcast comes out, which I think will be around the 24th of November, we'll have had a few other artists come on through as well. Okay. And we're still booking some really cool artists. I've reached out to 2 people. I'm looking forward to having both of them on because they're really cool. One of them is another musician.
Very cool.
You know him, and I know him. Don't say the name.
Shit, I don't even know.
No, you do.
I'm drawing a blank.
No, you shouldn't be, because you know him and my son Sean knows him.
No way.
Yes, I got him. I actually got him.
That's mind-blowing.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
So we've got an international musician whose music has been on the TV show Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah. And
we've got our very, very first stand-up comedian.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
That's going to be wicked.
So,
let him host.
yeah. So, guys, we're still booking artists, and it's super cool. We've got some amazing people coming up. We've had amazing people before. We continue to be, I continue to be blown away by the people and caliber of people that are just coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, you guys reached out to me, I'd like to be on board, or I've seen your podcast, I'd love to be on board. With Catherine, she reached out to us because of Lauren Roach.
Oh, okay.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it's very cool.
So other artists are even referring their artistic friends to us as well. So this is really cool, We've got good momentum, we're going to keep going.
It's wicked. It's getting into communities now that we're not even accessing ourselves in a way. It's kind of going through word of mouth, so that's cool. Good traction.
Yeah. It's and obviously we're edging a bit closer to Christmas now.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Well, it'll be.
I got 3 kids now.
The Christmas be expensive.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Because by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be the last week of November, and then we'll be rolling into December.
What am I doing for Christmas?
Yeah, man. What are you going to do?
We've got me and Liddy got no plans at the moment. So.
Liddy's your partner, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I probably haven't even mentioned hers, have I? My bad.
First time.
Love you, babe. But, don't kill me. Keep cooking, please. Oh, my God. I can't cook vegan food. Anyway.
No, he can't.
She'll get it. But, No. Well, I don't have any plans for Christmas. As far as I know, we're just staying home and kind of keeping it homely this year.
Nice.
Which is cool. We never really go too far abroad or anything anyway, or do anything extravagant. It's normally barbecue in the backyard and close fam coming around. So
it's a classic Kiwi thing, though, right?
That's what I love. I love to keep it simple. So
honestly, bro, I'm exactly the same. On Christmas Day, my son's mum, she has him in the morning. I have him in the afternoon. He gets 2 Christmases in one day. The kids, he loves it. Double presents.
No, because I remember when I was a kid, there was nothing worse than tripping around, because we used to go to Auckland and go to 3 different houses with my parents, and it's like, holy, and we're coming from Whangarei, so interesting times.
Yeah, it'll be cool. Anyway, The Wide. Thank you very much, everyone, for once again tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. My name is Mark Kelly.
And I'm Andrew McKenzie.
Thank you very much for tuning into the Northland Artists Conversation. We will see you guys real soon.